Well, and so to go back to Obama, he has always seemed to me to be a little bit uncomfortable making this argument, and I think you said that as well. Do you think, would you have him be a stronger voice for this type of argument?
I think he's become a stronger one. I think Obama is fundamentally a moderate politician. I just had at an earlier session a friendly argument with someone where if the Democrats are such a left-wing party, why did they pass the old Republican health care plan and not single payer, or at least get a single, a public option in? If they're such a left-wing party, why did they pass a relatively moderate, some would say watered-down version of Wall Street reform? If they're so left-wing, why was a third of the stimulus tax cuts? I mean, this is not a radical president. I joke, I know socialists, and they're insulted when President Obama is called a socialist, And I think that there was a contradiction inherent in the 2008 Obama campaign, and it was a contradiction that helped him during the campaign but created problems later, because there are two core promises Obama made. One was, I'm going to make fundamental changes in the country to make it work better, and the other is, I'm going to make us all get along and get rid of all this red-blue stuff and all this deep division. Well, given the array of forces in American politics, and given where the Republican Party has moved over a period of time, you couldn't do A and B at the same time. And you saw that on the health care bill, where whatever the problems with the health care bill, this was a huge step for the country. And it was really fulfilling that promise he made, I'm going to do big things. Well, guess what? That ran into a partisan buzzsaw. And he couldn't even get Olympia Snowe, who cast one vote for it in committee, to vote for it on final passage. And so I think it was that contradiction. I also think Obama is someone who has always believed he could persuade or at least calm down conservatives, because I think one of the most interesting biographical facts is he was elected president of the Harvard Law Review by the conservatives. That is to say, if they were a conservative minority who provided the swing vote, because they saw Obama as a reasonable guy who listened to them, who paid attention to them, who liked intellectual exchange. It's one of the attractive things about him, in fact. But I think it led him to believe that he could persuade the conservatives on the Harvard Law Review, and so he could do the same with Eric Cantor. Well, that's a different kettle of fish, or Mitch McConnell. And, and so I think he wasted too much time trying to keep the first half of that promise long after it was, should have been clear that it wasn't going to work. I think since the debt ceiling fight, he has moved to make some really, I think, some substantive arguments. And if I can just close on this, some of you may remember that he went to Osawatomie, Kansas in December of last year. Osawatomie was where Theodore Roosevelt gave his great new nationalism speech in 1910, and Teddy Roosevelt's a hero in my book. I was so excited when I heard this. I think the only person who was happier that he went to Osawatomie was the president of was the president of the Osawatomie Chamber of Commerce. And I think he was signaling that he's ready to make a bigger argument and accepting the fact that we're in the middle of this big argument about our future, and we can't move forward until we settle it.
I wonder, though, do you fault his leadership skills at all for that inability to make deals and persuade? Because one criticism that I hear from Democrats as well as Republicans is that because he has this sort of intellectual temperament and because he has this desire to hear all sides and to maybe equivocate, that he is not a deal maker.
Well, there is a column I wrote in that earlier period that I know the administration didn't like very much, where I said, concessions we can believe in was not Obama's slogan in 2008. And so I do think that, first of all, let me back up, that I have a lot of respect for Obama. I met him when he was a young state senator, have always liked him and think he is a really thoughtful person. And I agree with him, especially where I was in a minority in Washington, I think, in fighting the health care bill to the end. And I continue to believe, and I think it's an easier position to defend this week than it was last week, that this will give him a significant place in history because he took a really big step toward universal coverage. So my criticisms of Obama should be seen as within a context of a basic respect for a guy who inherited a heck of a lot of problems and was dealt a very difficult hand. But I do think that in that period, there was a feeling, for example, on the health care bill, I think it should have been obvious much earlier that there was not going to be a bipartisanship in the Senate. And I think that I wish Senator Baucus had sort of moved off this effort to appease Senator Grassley, which was never going to happen, and that they had written a bill much earlier. And I still believe that if they could have had some health care bills on the floor by the summer and get this debate out of the way in October, Scott Brown might not be a senator today, and the health bill would look different because it was that long process that really made the health care bill look terrible to people. It was like if you leave a bottle of milk outside for 6 months, you know what that bottle of milk is like. And I think that was what the health care bill was like for people. And I think so that I think there was a sort of too much hope that a certain negotiating style would work. So I think, I write in the book that I think in that period, I think that was mistaken. I understand where it came from. I don't think it was badly motivated. I just think it was a terrible, terrible mistake. And I think it particularly hurt the image of the health care bill.